Many European cities have a single central train station. However, Lisbon is not one of those. Instead, there are 4 distinct railway termini across the city, which makes crossing the region by train a bit of a challenge. What was the solution to that, you ask? Well, in 1998, the city opened a new facility intended to become the region's main station. Not in the center, but rather nearly 10 kilometers away to the northeast. It may seem counterintuitive, but this is actually really good network design that your city could learn from. It's just a shame that the station itself has turned out to be quite a disappointment. The new station is called Oriente, which is one of several ways that you can say east in Portuguese. It's been hailed for its architecture and was seen as a landmark part of Lisbon's bid for Expo 1998, with the Expo grounds themselves being nearby, and also the metro's new Red Line opening at around the same time, which would eventually go all the way to Lisbon's airport, which was also good for the station's connectivity. The station was part of broader upgrade works on the Northern Line. No, not that Northern Line. Portugal's Northern Line is currently a rather congested Iberian gauge railway between the 2 largest cities of Lisbon and Porto, with tons more important stops along the way, such as Entroncamento, which is literally Portuguese for junction. Very soon after Oriente opened, Portugal launched their higher speed rail service, Alfa Pendular, which uses these tracks too. But given the overcrowding of the line, there are plans to construct a parallel railway that, yes, will also be Iberian gauge, primarily to accommodate much faster trains up to 300 kilometers per hour. But back at Oriente, let's talk about why the station is where it is. The Northern Line has always ended at Santa Apollonia, which while not exactly being in central Lisbon is a lot closer in, and for a long time was considered the city's main station. However, it has a huge problem. It's located beyond a major Y that connects to the Belt Line, a vital corridor for suburban and regional rail services, and is also used by intercity services coming from Faro to work their way up to the Northern Line, so they can continue on towards Porto. Hypothetically, without Oriente, if you wanted to go from a suburban service to an intercity train towards Porto, you'd either need to backtrack or make a long metro journey. And that's where Oriente comes in. Being further up the Northern Line allows suburban services to through run there and is also a much more natural transfer point rather than going into the city only to go out again. Also, since Santa Apollonia only has terminating tracks, you have to turn trains really quickly to maintain high utilization. So today you don't see any trains using the third leg of the Y, which makes it more of a split. Also, to make matters worse, Santa Apollonia wasn't even connected to the metro until 2007, by which point Oriente became the main station anyway. Now, I did say that I found the station rather underwhelming, so now let's talk about why. Effectively, it comes down to the simple fact: don't judge a train station by its canopy, even though it does look stunning and won an award. The inside has a brutalist feel to it, which I don't really dislike, but it can be uninviting. But more crucially, it does that thing that places like Berlin Hauptbahnhof do, where every floor has its own purpose. And when you do that, you'd ideally want a way to travel up and down several floors in one go. Oh wait, we have a tool for that. It's called an elevator. Except most of the elevators at Oriente only allow you to go up or down one floor at a time. And they're also a little bit slow. So if you're going from the metro platforms to the mainline platforms, you would need at least 4 separate elevator rides. And this, I think, is a great example of why just installing elevators is not enough to make your station accessible. I plan to talk more about this in a future video, but I digress. When you combine the mess of elevators and escalators with almost non-existent wayfinding, the station ends up being quite a painful labyrinth to navigate. I couldn't even find any large departure boards. All I saw was this screen that's about the same size as my PC's monitor. There also doesn't appear to be a clear and obvious ticket office. Now, this wasn't a problem for me since I'd done my research before coming, but if you're not used to trains, it's a massive slap in the face. Also, it's not on the ground floor, but rather a floor above, which just why? That said, once you get up to the platforms, while they lack any amenities and aren't entirely waterproof, it is quite fun to watch trains go by. Here are a few that I caught. Now, Oriente is an interesting case study in a kind of train station which I've sometimes seen online being called shoulder stations, though I don't really think it has a formal name. It's becoming quite popular in a lot of cities and is effectively a major hub outside of the city center, and sometimes near a railway junction as well. Those stations tend to get lots of transit-oriented development as well, which makes sense with how many services they see. Perhaps the most well-known example of this concept is Stratford in London. Now, London is like Lisbon on a much bigger scale, with so many railway termini that don't connect, and Stratford being a little off to the northeast, acting as a relief hub for the much busier Liverpool Street at the end of the Great Eastern Main Line. Stratford is also quite special because it's the only place where the Underground, Overground, DLR, and the Elizabeth Line all intersect. And while it's not the single busiest train station in the UK anymore, it's still high up in the ranks. There are far more examples of this concept in places that you might not even expect. My home for the past few years, the Bay Area, has a couple. There's Santa Clara, which shoulders the busier San Jose Diridon, and it's just before the point where non-Caltrain services, like Capital Corridor and ACE, split from the Peninsula Main Line. It also has a bus service to San Jose Airport, which is something that Diridon doesn't have. It'll become much more important when BART gets there, maybe in 2053 at this rate. Millbrae could achieve a similar role, especially since California High-Speed Rails plan to stop there, unlike Santa Clara. It's already quite important for BART and Caltrain transfers at the moment, and in the past couple years it's seen a lot of development around the station, though in my opinion still not enough. And in the East Bay, there's Richmond, which is currently one of 2 places only where BART and Amtrak meet at the same facility. It's much more pleasant to get on an Amtrak service at Richmond compared to Coliseum, Jack London, or Emeryville, thanks to the BART link being there. If California High-Speed Rail were to extend in a new Transbay tube towards Sacramento, I think it should absolutely be stopping at Richmond as well. But that's a topic for another time. And here's one more example that piqued my interest. Landskrona is a fairly small Swedish town, which used to have its main station in the city center. However, it was a stub off the main railway line, so you couldn't go north to places like Helsingborg or Halmstad without backtracking. The solution that they chose was to build their new station directly on the line, which of course allows through running, but is a ways off from the city center, which is especially a problem given that Landskrona isn't a very big metropolitan area. Now here's the thing about these kind of shoulder stations. They're only really tolerable if they have reliable mass transit to the actual city center, and a lot of them do. Lisbon Oriente has the metro, Stratford has the tube, Richmond has BART, Santa Clara will have BART, etc, etc. Landskrona's solution, meanwhile, was a high-frequency trolley bus known as the Station Shuttle, which turns out to be quite useful. So yeah, shout out to all my Swedish viewers on the channel if you're out there. But that right there is going to do it for this video, a quick look at Lisbon Oriente Station, what it does right, what it doesn't do right, and what your city could learn from it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.